Hey everybody, I'm Don with Alpha Moto. We're here today to talk a little bit about the Alpha Moto cam chain breaker tool. Okay. Generally, this tool is designed for cutting a cam chain on the internals of an engine. If we just look over here, we got a little example of a cam chain. This is just the top end of a single cylinder motorcycle. Here's our cam, our head, valves are out obviously, but this is your cam chain. Cam chain is what connects to the crankshaft. I'll show you this as an example first because I wanted to explain in today's modern motorcycles, okay, these cam chains are extremely small. If we take this off of here and take a look, you can see literally how small these links are, okay? And this tool is really not capable of cutting this chain, but there's no need to. 90% of the motorcycles out there today have an endless chain that does not need to be cut to disassemble the engine. This comes into play more along the lines of some older motorcycles from the 70s and 80s, some of the British motorcycles, and some of the KTM motorcycles that require you to actually cut the cam chain to disassemble the motor. Okay? Now, once again, seeing how small these modern chains are, you can see this is a pretty substantial tool. The chains, the cam chains on the older motorcycles were quite a bit bigger. Okay? Through evolution, horsepower, materials, these things have gotten so much smaller and there's no need to cut them. So what we're going to do to demonstrate this today is just use a slightly larger chain. It's not actually a cam chain, but it works exactly the same way. We're going to demonstrate this tool, the three functions of it on another piece of chain. Okay? We're going to use this piece of 428 chain here. And we're going to just demonstrate how we would cut it if it were in a cam chain, in an engine as a cam chain. So we'll just get it slacked over here. Now, if it was an actual cam chain in an engine, we would just, what we'd be doing is just pushing out one of the single pins on this chain so we could split the chain and disassemble the motor. When we reassemble the motor, we would bring that chain back together, use the same tool to push that pin back in. Nice thing about this tool, it's pretty much a multitasker. It's not designed for the super big heavy chains, but you can do a drive chain with this. This is a 428 motorcycle drive chain. It's a very common chain on smaller motorcycles, dirt bikes, and you can do up to about a 520 chain successfully with this. So it's not just for cam chains. It's a light duty drive chain cutter also. Okay? So with that explanation out there, I'll give you a quick demonstration. First thing we want to do is we want to cut this chain as if it were a cam chain. So we have our vise or press per se, and this is the one single piece of this tool that is pretty much used throughout, and we have some different adapters that go with it. So in this particular case, we're going to pull this little press cover off of here, set that aside, and this is a two bolt type arrangement here. So we're just going to unscrew this all the way. And remember, we're pressing out the pin. So how do we press it out? Well, we have to force some pressure on it. We'll take out the backing bolt. Now we're going to go into our assortment and see what might be the best size pin to use. It's a fairly small chain. This obviously would be a little bit too big to press through one of those links, obviously. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to pull a smaller one. Let's go all the way down to our second size. See how that looks against those pins. Okay, we don't want too small a one, so that looks about right. That's going to push that pin straight through. Now what we want to do is load this in our press. We're also going to use a spring that's enclosed in the kit here, and this is just going to keep everything retracted so it doesn't flop around in there. Very simple. Just put it over the end, and then this goes in the end of the press, and then our bolt goes back in. Okay, a couple of things going on here. For one, we want a good tight connection on the chain with this part of the press. We want that to close all the way down on the chain, okay? And once we do that, then we're going to start turning our outer, and as you'll see, that pin is slowly coming out, and that's pressing the center pin of the chain out. It's going to press it right into there, and it's going to fall out. The spring is in there, so when we back this up, the pin backs up with it. So, pretending we're cutting a cam chain, we're just going to go over here, lay the chain in here, right on the pin. We're going to center a pin right on the back side of that and clamp down on that chain. We just want it stable so it's not going to push sideways. Once we get that good and snug, okay, what we want to do is connect our kind of handle here. It does take a little bit of force to do this, so you need a little bit of leverage. And then we've got our second bar, which is going to operate the bolt that's going to push that pin through. So we're going to put some force on that, just run it through. And there we go. I think that pin's just about ready to come out of there. And there it is. That's our center pin out of our chain. Now we're going to back this all the way up because we want that pin out of there. And then we're going to back off the other. So now what we've got is a chain that's been cut with one pin removed. As you can see, both links are still intact. There's no distortion, no bending. The press kept everything lined up. Okay, so that would be a cam chain cut. To reassemble, we use a couple of different fittings in here. We'll get into that next. We'll reset this tool to do that. Okay, so this is what we're left with after pushing one pin through. And generally this is called a half link, which is what we're left with. If we were going to reuse this cam chain, we would have to do the exact same thing with the tool on this pin and press these plates off. It's exactly the same as we've just done to remove that pin. Okay, if we were going to reuse this cam chain. If we're not, you can just put it aside and don't worry about it. When you get your new cam chain, it's going to come through with ends like this. Okay, your new cam chain is going to come like this, and it's also going to come with a new press type link and the press type plate. That's how we're going to reassemble this cam chain to go back together. Using our tool, our cam chain breaker, we're going to have to switch pieces here a little bit. As you remember, this was the spring and the pin to push out the old pin, the old cam chain pin. I'll put that back in its place here. Okay. Now what we have to do is reconnect this chain with the press pin. There's no clip or anything on here. It literally has to be pressed together. That's the second function of this tool. And the third being to actually peen these ends over so the link cannot come apart. So for now, what we're going to do, and these can be a little tight, a little arduous sometimes, is reassemble this. Okay, we're going to get it down as far as we can on there. Like I said, they could be a little bit tough. There we go. All the way down on that side. And all the way down on that side. So our link is through. We want to position our press plate over those two pins. And usually you can get it to kind of center itself on there just temporarily. Okay. And that's the way we're going to press it. So we'll go back to our cam chain tool here. Okay. We're not going to need the insert, the second bolt, or a pin. On this one, we're going to use these two plates. Okay. And as you can see, one is grooved in the center. That's going to be our backing plate. Okay. And then we have one with some holes that are going to allow the pins to come through slightly. So we'll use one on one side. Back that up a little bit, and one on the other side. And what we want to do, and this could be a little bit tricky too, is we want to position that link in here so we can press it together nice and evenly. Okay, there's the link we want to press. I want to kind of get it in position here. Can lay it down in that groove. Remember, we've got a groove there for the pins. It's kind of a tough shot, but and what we want to do is get that lined up. Like I said, it can be a little tricky. This could be a little tricky too, because if it's a cam chain, you're doing this on top of an engine, an unassembled engine. And we want to get that plate in there. Let that kind of come down. And it'll kind of line itself up once we get going here. Once we get it so it'll hold in place, then we can check for exact alignment. We're going to have to come out a little bit, come up just like that. Once we're snug, a little bit snug, take a look, check our alignment. Looks pretty good. Sure everything's kind of turning free. And then we're going to get a wrench right on this nut here and press that together. And it should be a 14 maybe. We can just use an adjustable for now. We'll snug that up. Just snug. And let's recheck our alignment. Make sure it presses, putting that link on square. Now remember, this side is going to keep those pins from being pushed too far through. So that's why it's solid. And this one has the holes. You'll see you can't really put it together wrong. And we start our pressing. At this point, I like to back it off and take a look, see how far in we are on that. Okay, we'll just back that off. And as you can see, we're lined up good. We're in the holes. Okay, we still got to go a little bit further. We want those pins sticking out, protruding a little bit, just like that. Okay. Can be a little bit arduous, but we'll get it here. So we're back in the press. We're lined up. Try and get you a better shot of that. There we go. Lined up nice and straight. And then we can continue to press. Alrighty, get untangled here. You can see it's pretty much flush with the rest of them, about the same size. Now what we want to do is just get the edges pushed over a little bit. And that's the third function of this machine. For that, we're going to use a couple of different pieces out of our kit here, along with our main vise. Okay, the riveting or peening over of one of the or two of the pins is necessary so that end plate will not pop off. So we're going to come over to our kit and we're going to grab the riveting tool. Okay, it's a little bit different than the press pin tools, and when you see it, you'll notice it has a little bit different an end there. See how it's kind of rounded on the end? So we're going to use this. I'm going to insert it. Oh, I'm going to use our spring again, just for good measure, I think. Does it work on this one? Yes, sir. Put our spring and our riveting pin in there, and then we're going to come back with our secondary bolt. And you can see the riveting part of the tool come out as we turn the outer bolt. That end is what's going to rivet or peen over the end of the pins. So we'll back that in so it's out of the way. And then we're going to get this back to size over our chain. We're going to find our link that we pressed. We're going to come over the pin. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to need one more thing here. Just let's go back over to our box really quick. And we've got our backing plate. Okay, we're going to put our backing plate in here, and that's going to prevent the pin from being pushed out too far. Okay, so we're going to come over where we need to crush that tip. We're lined up. As you can see, we're lined up on the first pin. That riveting tool is going to come right out there. So we get snug, and now we got to exert a little bit of pressure. We're going to get our leverage bar. We're going to crush the end of that pin over just a little bit. Okay. Come back out and take a look. Yeah, that one's good. We'll do the other one the same way. Same thing in the jig. Lined up. Going in snug with our riveting tool. And we're going to put some pressure on that. We're going to snug that down. And just enough to push that metal a little flat so the plate can't come out. And back it out of our vise. Now we can take a good look at that link. And as you can see, it looks real similar to the others. Just got a little bit of a bend over on that lip there. And now you have an endless chain. There's your timing chain, or potentially drive chain if you like. And that's your Alpha Moto cam chain / drive chain, cutting, pressing, and riveting tool all in one. I'll take this back apart and put her all back the way she fits in the box. Everything you need. Great tool, heavy duty, great for the smaller chains, easy to use. Overall, really nice item.